Something strange is happening in Cleveland, and it's not just another quarterback controversy. For months, fans have watched a struggling offense stumble through winnable games, while the solution, some say the future of the franchise, stood quietly in the shadows. His name? Shedeur Sanders. And while the media called him unproven, while the coaching staff acted like he didn't exist, he did something unexpected. He put his head down and went to work. But then, like a switch got flipped, things changed fast. The coach who ignored him, gone. The excuses suddenly vanished. And the new guy in charge walked in, looked around, and gave a 5-word order that stunned the building. Get Shedeur with the ones. No drama, no delay, just action. This wasn't a tryout, it was a declaration. A message that screamed through the silence. Politics are over. Performance matters now. And the ripple effect? You could feel it everywhere. In the tempo at practice, in the energy on the sideline, even in the way reporters started digging deeper, asking tougher questions. Why was this kid buried so long? Why did it take this long for someone to actually take a stand? The answers go deeper than football. And what you're about to hear might just change how you look at the Browns' entire season. From the outside, it looked like Shedeur Sanders was buried on the depth chart. Just another rookie, sitting behind the veterans, waiting for his turn. But if you ask anyone who actually watched the day-to-day grind inside that locker room, he wasn't waiting. He was working. While Dillon Gabriel ran with the starters and Stefanski stuck to a predictable plan, Shedeur was attacking the game from early mornings in the film room, quiet reps with receivers after practice, studying blitz packages while others scrolled through social media. He wasn't preparing like a second-string quarterback. He was moving like a starter without the title. And the scary part? It started to show. His footwork tightened, his release got quicker. Every read came a beat faster. The timing, the rhythm, the control. It all started coming together. Coaches noticed, players noticed, even the media, in those rare open sessions, could see the difference. But the person who didn't seem to notice was the one who mattered most, head coach Kevin Stefanski. Week after week, Shedeur's name barely even came up. Reporters asked, Stefanski dodged, and when he finally did address the situation, it was the same empty script. Development, patience, not quite ready. Even when Shedeur lit up reps in practice, they called it potential, never progress. But here's what really made it frustrating. There was no off-the-field drama, no injuries, no ego, just a relentless, silent grind from a guy who believed he could lead. He didn't whine, he didn't beg for attention, he just prepared. And whether it was strategy, pride, or politics, Stefanski's refusal to acknowledge that growth started to feel less like caution and more like fear. Like he wasn't protecting Shedeur, he was protecting himself. Because giving Shedeur a real shot meant risking everything the staff had doubled down on. And if the kid actually delivered, it wouldn't just change the quarterback hierarchy. It would expose everything wrong with how Cleveland's offense had been run. But all of that changed the second a new voice stepped into the room. When Tommy Rees walked into the Browns facility as interim head coach, no one knew what to expect. He wasn't part of the old regime. He had no loyalty to depth charts or front office politics. And unlike his predecessor, Rees didn't speak in circles. He looked at the film, watched one practice, and made a decision that shook the building. Get Shedeur with the ones. No buildup, no vague language, just action. And if you think that was just a coaching adjustment, you're missing the point. That one sentence sent a clear message. This isn't about relationships anymore. It's about results. Rees didn't ask who the staff favored. He didn't lean on what was safe. He trusted his own eyes. And what he saw was undeniable. A quarterback who had been overlooked, underestimated, and outright ignored was operating at starter-level speed, precision, and leadership. And just like that, everything changed. Practice tempo shifted, huddles got tighter, receivers started running with purpose again. Because when a quarterback believes in you, you believe back. The energy, real. The rhythm, noticeable. Even the media sitting on the sideline could tell something was different. Then came the press conference. Reese didn't sugarcoat, dodge, or spin. He praised Shedeur by name. Leadership, film study, accuracy, poise. All the traits the previous coach pushed to the shadows were now front and center. What Stefanski downplayed as potential, Reese called preparation. And here's what makes that so important. Reese wasn't just making a personnel move. He was reclaiming the locker room. Players had grown tired of excuses. The defensive unit, but Reese, he brought clarity. He brought purpose. He brought conviction. And when you lead with conviction, players follow fast. Because for the first time in a long time, it felt like Cleveland wasn't playing scared and wasn't playing favorites. They were finally just playing football. For weeks, every time Shedeur Sanders got close to breaking through, something or someone held him back. Not because he wasn't performing, not because he wasn't learning fast enough, but because the truth is, in Cleveland, not every decision is about football. And when Kevin Stefanski stood in front of reporters and claimed Shedeur's back was bothering him, just days after he'd been throwing lasers in practice, that's when the mask slipped. That wasn't injury protocol. That was a cover story. Because here's the reality. The entire foundation of Stefanski's quarterback plan crumbles. His pick, his strategy, his system, all of it gets exposed. So instead of embracing competition, he ignored it. Instead of addressing Shedeur's progress, he acted like the kid wasn't even there. At pressers, his name wasn't mentioned. In depth chart updates, he was basically invisible. Not injured, not struggling, just erased. But Reese didn't play that game. The same week Stefanski claimed Shedeur wasn't physically ready, Reese gave him full-speed reps with the first team and praised everything that had been overlooked. His rhythm, leadership, accuracy, and control. No spin, no dodging, just facts. Reese let the football speak, and that's what caused the shift, not just in the locker room, but in the fan base. Because when you start comparing actions, the picture becomes crystal clear. One coach was protecting his job, the other was protecting the future. And the more fans watched, the more they realized this wasn't just about a quarterback battle. It was about fear, ego, control. Because when you refuse to play the best guy out of pride, you're not making decisions for the team. You're making them for yourself. And maybe that's why Shedeur wasn't on the field earlier. Because if he played well, if he won, it wouldn't just change who starts under center. It would rewrite the story Stefanski's been telling all season. You can only hold the truth back for so long. In any NFL locker room, the players always know. Before fans, before media, before management admits it. They know who's putting in the work and who's being protected. And in Cleveland, that quiet awareness finally spilled over. Because the silence, it started with frustration, especially on the defensive side. Week after week, the Browns' defense was carrying the load, keeping games within reach as the offense stalled, stumbled, and wasted golden opportunities. That pressure adds up. It breaks teams. It breaks belief. Then came the moment that changed everything. Myles Garrett spoke up. Not in anger, not on impulse, in clarity. Garrett, the face of the defense, went public with his frustration about how the offense was being run. And let's be real, when your locker room heartbeat sends a warning shot, you're not dealing with emotion. You're dealing with exhaustion. It meant one thing. They were tired of carrying someone else's mistakes. What Garrett said without saying was this: the problem isn't effort, it's direction, it's leadership. And what did Kevin Stefanski do? He shrugged it off. Wait. At some point, the scoreboard stops telling the full story, and the film takes over. And when the Browns cut the tape, what they saw wasn't bad luck. It was bad quarterbacking. Week after week, Dillon Gabriel looked the part during warm-ups. Clean footwork, decent arm, calm demeanor. But as soon as the lights came on, the cracks split wide open. Missed short reads, floated deep balls, bad timing in the red zone. A once promising offense stalled out in the most crucial moments, and nobody had to guess why. Defenses weren't guessing either. They had the blueprint by week 4. Show disguise before the snap, collapse the pocket, force Gabriel off his platform, and everything unraveled. Double clutches, hesitations, no command. The rhythm was gone, the momentum lost. It wasn't even personal, it was just predictable. But what made things worse? Kevin Stefanski kept doubling down. No adjustments, no open competition. Every press conference came with the same empty defense. He's learning. He just needs more time. And all the while, Shedeur Sanders was sitting quietly behind the drama, showing everything Gabriel wasn't. Pocket poise, read progression, ball velocity. There was a calmness to his execution that couldn't be denied in reps, no matter how far down the depth chart he sat. And to those watching practice closely, the truth started to sting. They were backing the wrong quarterback. Players noticed. Coaches noticed. And fans? They weren't fooled either. Because film doesn't have bias. It isn't emotional. It's not about draft politics or coaching favorites. And when the film shows one guy regressing under pressure, while another is rising in silence, you've got a problem that can't be covered up with coach speak anymore. Tommy Rees didn't ignore that film. He confronted it, and that's why everything shifted the moment he stepped into power. He didn't bench Gabriel out of panic. He did it because the tape told him the truth. This was never just about who throws the football on Sundays. It was always bigger than that, a quiet tug-of-war between control and competence behind closed doors. And Shedeur Sanders? He became the lightning rod in the middle of it. Kevin Stefanski didn't just overlook Shedeur. He buried him. Week after week, he stood in front of cameras and spoke like the decision was obvious, like Gabriel was the only logical option. But behind the scenes, it looked a lot more like fear than faith, because if Shedeur stepped in and clicked, if he moved the pocket better, hit the throws, rallied the huddle, everything Stefanski had been defending would fall apart overnight. His system, his judgment, his trusted starter, it would all crumble fast. And people don't protect players when they're making football decisions. They protect them when they're making political ones. That's why Shedeur wasn't just benched. He was erased until Tommy Rees showed up. Rees didn't inherit a quarterback room. He inherited a broken chain of accountability. He watched the tape and saw the gap, not just in execution, but in energy. One guy following the script, crumbling under pressure. The other, quietly leading, adjusting, earning trust from the locker room without even being given the title. So Rees made the call, not to ignite a controversy, but to correct an imbalance, to stop coaching like his job was on the line and start coaching like the team's future was. And in that one decision, it became clear, this wasn't about tearing down the old. It was about finally building towards something real. Because winning doesn't come from protecting egos. It comes from empowering the right people. And in this story, the quarterback controversy was never the real issue. The real issue was who Cleveland was letting make the calls and why. When a locker room starts to believe again, you feel it. It's not loud at first. It's a different energy. Helmets get buckled a little tighter. Reps move faster. Coaches stop shouting and start watching because belief is contagious. And when it returns, the tone of the entire building shifts. That's what happened when Tommy Rees gave Shedeur Sanders the nod. This wasn't a PR stunt or a developmental experiment. It was a calculated decision based on weeks of silence, tension, and tape. Reese didn't need buzzwords. He just gave the right player the right opportunity. And the locker room responded immediately, because deep down, they already knew. They'd seen the trust in the huddle, the anticipation on routes, the poise under pressure. These weren't traits of a backup. These were the instincts of a quarterback who was ready. And the moment Shedeur took the field with the ones, the players made a different kind of mental note. We might be back. Wide receivers started catching rhythm throws in stride. Linemen blocked with a fraction more confidence. Even the defense, tired, overworked, and fed up, seemed to breathe again. Not because Shedeur was crowned the savior, but because they finally had direction again. And in the NFL, direction is power. Let's be honest, this season didn't need a miracle. It needed clarity. It needed someone who wasn't afraid to make the call that should have been made weeks ago. Reese brought that, and Shedeur, he matched it with preparation, maturity, and command. It's not about hype anymore. It's about chemistry, momentum, hope. Because for the first time all year, Cleveland is lining up behind someone who earned the moment, not someone protected into it. That changes everything. On the field, in practice, and in the hearts of a team that was starting to give up behind closed doors. So can one quarterback spark a season turnaround? If the locker room truly believes he can, then it's already started. This was never just about talent. Shedeur Sanders has had the arm, the intelligence, and the poise since day one. The stats may not have told the story, but his preparation always did. What held him back wasn't mechanics or readiness. It was something uglier. Protecting. He talked around Shedeur, dodged questions, and leaned on excuses like development or vague injuries that never matched reality. That's not coaching. That's control. And when Tommy Reese stepped in, he didn't just shuffle a depth chart. He exposed the cracks in Cleveland's foundation. He listened to the room. He watched the reps, and he trusted the truth that had been hidden all season. He didn't hand Shedeur the keys. He unblocked the road that had been intentionally closed in front of him. Now, with just one decision, the Browns looked different, hungrier, sharper, unified. Because when the right guy's under center, it's not just about X's and O's, it's about belief. And Reese gave this team, finally, a reason to believe again. And it raises a bigger question. How many other projects across the league are actually just buried leaders, waiting for blind politics to get out of the way? Because what happened in Cleveland might not be unique, but it's rare that the truth rises this fast, this cleanly, this definitively. Make no mistake, this isn't a feel-good underdog story. This is a story about accountability, about what happens when someone finally has the courage to say, this kid deserves to lead. And when the leadership comes from action, not PR, the team listens. So do the fans. So does the future. One coach protected a system. The other protected the spark that might just save the season. Now the Browns have a new voice, a new direction, and maybe, just maybe, a quarterback worth trusting. Not someday, not later, right now.